keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only gon'
What's going on, guys? Jake here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be bringing you my mock draft that's 1 week away from the NFL draft. Some of the things have changed, but most of it has kind of stayed the same. Over this next week or so, we're going to be getting a lot of different sources that's going to change a couple picks and make it a little bit more interesting with could a team go with this guy? Are they looking more towards this guy? But before we get into it, please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that we talk about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future info content that I'm going to be putting out all throughout the year. So jumping into this right now, we're 1 week away. A lot of it's kind of solidified here at the top. But there's still some rumors for some teams that maybe they could go multiple directions and that they're looking at multiple different prospects. But the number one pick, Tennessee Titans, it's staying pretty much the same. It's been the same pretty much all draft cycle. They're taking Cam Ward here. And look at what they did in free agency all throughout the entire off season. They've pretty much set it up to where they've pretty much addressed most areas on their team instead of and trying to set up who's going to be their next quarterback of the future. And that's going to be Cam Ward. He's pretty much the quarterback in this draft with the biggest potential and the highest home run swing almost. So if you're at the number one pick, you're pretty much taking the most important position and taking pretty much the guy with the highest upside, and that's what Cam Ward is. Cleveland Browns, a lot of people thought this would be Abdul Carter for the longest time. I also thought that as well. But with most reports recently, and most people are kind of starting to think that's going to be Travis Hunter here. And they actually just brought in Joe Flacco. I do think that they're going to try to move up. They have the first pick in the second round, pick number 33, and I think that they're going to try to move up from that pick in the middle of the first round to try to get one of the quarterbacks, and later, whether it's Shador Fallen or it's Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe, I think they're going to try to move up and get a quarterback then. But here with Travis Hunter, I think they're going to be one of the rare teams that actually allows him to play receiver or corner and play both of them. And they need offensive weapons. They need another cornerback across from Denzel Ward. So he's one of those guys that could be able to come in and be able to do that and add them weapons on the offense and defensive side. The Giants, they went out and they added several quarterbacks in free agency, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. I think they're also a team that could potentially move up into with their early second round pick into the late first round, similar to what Cleveland did if Shador starts to fall, or maybe Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe, maybe even Tyler Sott from Louisville. A lot of people are starting to hype him up to be an early second round pick. But I think right now they're just going to take best player available, Brian Dable, Abdul Carter. Now, with them taking Abdul Carter, it's going to get very interesting because with them taking him, they could be able to potentially move Kayvon Thibodeau. And moving Kayvon Thibodeau, that could potentially be used in a situation where they try to trade up with someone in the first round that could potentially need a edge piece. But Abdul Carter would come in and take over that slot. And I think he's the best player in the draft in this draft class from any prospect positioning. And he's going to come in and be a force alongside with Brian Burns, and they're going to be one of the more dominant edge rushing duos. But they just overall need more talent, and they need to find their guy. And being able to go out and get the best player in the draft is a great combination for the Giants. New England Patriots, this is their nightmare. They're hoping Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter falls to them at number four. There's several options that they could look for. I think their main focus, they're going to want to try to trade down, but there's not really going to be many teams looking to trade up. Maybe the Bears trying to come up for Genty. Maybe the Jets. Well, that wouldn't happen because they're in the same division as the Patriots. But maybe a team looking to jump the Jaguars for Mason Graham. But overall, I think here it either comes down to Ashton Genty or it comes down to offensive line protection. I think the main guy that they're really going to like and want to be able to pick is Will Campbell. And this whole mock draft is going to be my predictions of what I think is going to be happening. And I think that they're going to go with Will Campbell to come in there at that left tackle spot to be able to protect Drake May. And they're pretty much just going to either try to surround Drake May with weapons or help protect him on the offensive line. I actually did a 7 round Patriots mock draft if you haven't seen it. Please go check that out on the channel. But I think that their overall pretty much goal is surround and protect Drake May, and that's what they do here. They pretty much go and try to get their franchise left tackle. Their whole left side of their offensive line is pretty much terrible, and they need to upgrade it, and they do that here with Will Campbell. Jacksonville Jaguars, this has been the most chalk pick pretty much all offseason. Mason Graham here. Their interior, their defensive line is pretty much awful. They need to pretty much help out Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. Now, there has been some rumors. I would not be shocked here if this is Jalen Walker as well. But with them already having two dominant edge rushers that have been improving, and Trayvon Walker, who's been doing better in his development over the last couple of years, they really just need to help out their interior defense line. They didn't address it in free agency. So that kind of sets up the Mason Graham pick. And there was a video of him training in Jackson, or training at some facility over a couple days ago, and he had a Jacksonville Jaguar shirt on. So, take that with a grain of salt. But this has pretty much been the most known pick. Now, it could be Jalen Walker, but I'm gonna say Mason Graham for right now in this mock draft. Number six, the Raiders. This has been another one of the most chalk picks. Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty's one of those guys that's seen in the NFL as pretty much one of the better running back prospects we've seen since Saquon Barkley. He's a guy that could come in and be an instant impact, and a lot of NFL scouts and teams believe that he could be a 15-yard rusher his very first year. And coming in with the Raiders, they just need offensive weapons. They're one of the least talented teams in the NFL, and they go out regardless of position and taking Ashton Jeanty. Pete Carroll in Seattle, he had Marshawn Lynch, a dominant running game. I think he's going to look to try to replicate that. There was a source that maybe Colston Miller's look is holding out because he doesn't have a new contract. And they could potentially look to draft Armand Membu, but I think it's mostly going to be Jeanty here. I think that's just a source to try to get Colton Miller to negotiate better with them and try to get a little bit more money. And they're actually going to end up taking Jeanty here. And then speaking of Armand Membu, the New York Jets, they need to complete their offensive line. They don't have a right tackle unless they move Elijah Vera Tucker out. And here they go and get their offensive tackle of the future to complete a young offensive line to be able to set up Justin Fields. I think that they're going to see how the Justin Fields things plays out, and they're going to wait a year on quarterback. If Justin Fields doesn't do very good, then they're going to move on from them. But here they're going to try to set him up as best they can and set up that offensive line by coming and getting Armand Membu to play right tackle. The New Orleans Saints are going to go and get their quarterback of the future and get Shador. Actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. This is the Panthers pick, and the Panthers are going to go with pretty much defense and try to get the best defensive player on the board to try to add talent. And they're going to go with this has kind of been a chalk pick over the last couple weeks, and they're going to try to go and get, if I can find him, a linebacker slash if he gets drafted, he's gonna be an edge rusher. It's gonna be Jalen Walker, and they're just trying to upgrade their defense. I could see a team maybe trying to jump him. Maybe the Falcons end up liking Jalen Walker, trying to move up to seven. But uh, with them, they're just trying to upgrade their defense. They had probably the worst defense in the NFL, and they just need more talent on that defense. And moving on to the Saints now, Shador Sanders ends up falling to number nine. He could end up falling more if the Saints don't pick him here. They could easily go with edge or defense line, and they could end up having Shador fall a little bit. Maybe a team tries to move up, but at this point in the mock, maybe it changes in a week. But at this point, I'm gonna have them taking quarterback number nine, going with Shador Sanders at quarterback. The Bears, this is interesting. It could be a Marion Hampton. It could be Tyler Warren. I think in this, I've been going back and forth with these two. I think in this draft right now, I'm going to go with Tyler Warren falling here. Now, I know they have Cole Kmet, and I think Tyler Warren's just a different weapon than Cole Kmet. And if you look at Ben Johnson in Detroit when he was running that offense, he used a lot of two tight end sets with Sam Laporta and Brock Wright. And that could be the same way here with just two probably better tight ends in the NFL with Cole Kmet and Tyler Warren, and that could be one of the scariest personnel groupings in the NFL if they end up going with Tyler Warren here and combining those two. The San Francisco 49ers, I think that they go with Jahdae Barron. Robert Saleh values corner. He did it with Sauce Gardner when he was at the Jets, him being the defensive coordinator in San Francisco. I think that they're going to want to get their cornerback of the future and to be able, they lost a lot of pieces in free agency. They lost Tre'Davious Ward, they lost Dre Greenlaw, they lost Hufanga at safety, and they lost a whole bunch of those guys. And he could be able to step in there and be that dominant cornerback one, even though he could be a slot corner guy, probably most likely. But he has that natural talent and those ball skills. It's gonna be a question to see if he's gonna be a boundary guy, but I think they're gonna be happy either way having him at cornerback. The Dallas Cowboys. I think that they're going to look to add another offensive weapon. It could be a Marion Hampton here who's still on the board, but at this point, I think they're going to go Tedero McMillan at wide receiver to try to add. He's a big body guy. CeeDee Lamb's probably going to be going out of the slot mostly. Tedero McMillan has the ability to go out of the slot, but he's mostly going to be an outside receiver and use his big body frame to be a weapon there for Dak and that Dallas offense. I think that they're going to look to address running back later in the draft. Um, Considering it's such a deep running back class this year, probably one of the most deep ever. The Miami Dolphins, I think, after losing to Ron Armstead, he ended up retiring. They need to upgrade the offensive line and help out Tua. I think that they go with probably the one of the more true tackles in this class, and Kelvin Banks. He's probably one of my favorite offensive linemen in this class. He could play guard, a lot of people think, but I think he's going to do just fine at left tackle. He has the ability to do very well in that running game and his technique in the passing. Having that combination of that pass set ability along with moving people and having that run blocking technique, I think he's going to be very good at the next level. And they could go secondary here after shopping Jalen Ramsey, but I think they're going to wait on cornerback and be able to get their left tackle to feature to help protect Tua. The Colts here, they need tight end. Tyler Warren's off the board, but another guy that's hyped up a lot by NFL scouts, and they think he's going to be a top 10 guy as well, is Colston Loveland. He's one of that Brock Bowers type build. I think that they're going to look to try to surround Anthony Richardson. This could be an offensive lineman pick. There was a source a while back that said the Colts are going to try to attack offensive line. But here, I think with Colston Loveland on the board still, a lot of scouts end up loving him, and he could be a pick for the Colts to be able to help out in that development of Anthony Richardson. If Anthony Richardson can't develop this next year, I think they move on from him next year. The Atlanta Falcons, looking at this, I think looking at who they have, they need to upgrade that defense. They need to upgrade defensive line. And in the past, they've gone with the athletic freaks and Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. I think they do the same thing here, but they go with the defensive side and they go and get Shamar Stewart. He's the guy that blew up the combine. He probably had one of the best combines in NFL history at from that edge position. And he has that upside and that athletic ability. He just doesn't really have the production, but you can see the potential that he could have and be able to develop into. And I think that's really what the Falcons really like. And they see that in him and they take him to be able to upgrade their defense, hoping to be able to develop him into that ceiling that he could have. Moving on to the Arizona Cardinals, this could be a different couple of pieces. I think that they're going to look to attack the offensive side. Looking at this, they could go corner, but I think that they're going to look to try to get weapons for Kyler Murray. And going with this, I think they're going to go with Matthew Golden. Golden's a guy that's probably going to go in the first round. He could be the first wide receiver picked in the NFL draft. He was a big playmaker at any time that they needed a big play at Texas. Matthew Golden was the guy that ended up making the plays. And Isaiah Bond ended up getting hurt. Golden ended up stepping up into that position at the University of Texas. And I think he would be a great option to go along with Marvin Harrison. He could run it out of the slot mostly, but he could also be that speed threat on the outside. And it's just this crisp route running that he has. Could be a great combination of both of them to go alongside with that Arizona offense. The Cincinnati Bengals, they need to upgrade their defense. I don't think that they go with interior defense line. They have spent draft capital on it last year. I think that they're going to look to go with the edge position. They could potentially look to go linebacker here or safety, but I'm going to have them go Mike Green for right now. Mike Green was the most productive player in college football last year. He had 17 and a half sacks, probably the most tackle for losses in college football. His only question mark is that he played at Marshall at a mid major level, but at the Senior Bowl he went and dominated against a lot of guys that are went to a lot of prestigious colleges in this draft class. The Seahawks, they didn't really address interior offensive line like you would think that they would have. So I'm gonna have them go with Gray Zabel is a guy that could easily upgrade that interior of the offensive line. He could play any of the five positions on the offensive line. He could play center, guard, or tackle. I think he would get drafted here to play center in Seattle, and that's really their biggest need. And he's one of the better players on the board, so it just seemed like a great fit for them to upgrade their interior of their offensive line for Sam Darnold. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they go with the linebacker position. This is a guy that could go very high in the class, and a lot of people have him going sometimes in the top 10 to the Saints. But Hyde Campbell would fit in very well in Tampa Bay. He would go alongside Levante David, and he would pretty much take over that role once he ends up retiring. I think that they've been looking for a guy to replace Devin White for a while now, ever since he kind of fell off, and Jahad Campbell would come in and do that. His combination of size and speed definitely gives him the athletic ability to be able to play linebacker there and take over that middle linebacker spot. The Denver Broncos, they're definitely looking for weapons. It's either going to be receiver or running back, and this is kind of the floor for Marion Hampton. And if he's still on the board, this is the final spot where he would go. And having two running backs in the first round, you don't always see it. I think Marion Hampton is closer to Ashton Genty than what a lot of people think. I think he could go number 10 to the Bears. But if he doesn't go number 10 to the Bears, he could go 12 to the Cowboys. And I think this is the lowest spot that he will go if he's still available. And they pretty much try to help out Bo Nix and get that running back and try to get that ground game going. Kind of similar to how they use Alvin Kamara in New Orleans for Sean Payton. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they need a quarterback. They could move up if Shador's still available after number 9, but at this point he was taken to the Saints. So they're going to go with Jackson Dart here. With them going with Jackson Dart, he's a guy that could come in and be developed. I could easily see him bringing in Aaron Rodgers and letting Jackson Dart sit for a year to learn behind Aaron Rodgers and then be able to take over after he ends up retiring in a year or two. The Los Angeles Chargers, I think that they want weapons. They could go receiver here, but I think that they're going to wait. I think Jim Harbaugh, being their head coach, he knows the importance and always values the trenches of the offensive line and defensive line. And since the value's not really here with a lot of the skill players, I think that they would go with Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan's someone that could go much higher. Some people flirted around with him going to the Jaguars over Mason Graham, but I think that's a little bit too high for me. He was the guy that pretty much dominated the Senior Bowl as well and rose his stock a lot throughout the process with the Combine, with the Senior Bowl, and throughout this entire offseason. The Green Bay Packers, I think that they're going to try to move on from Jair Alexander. They still haven't settled that. They haven't traded him yet. But with Will Johnson still being here on the board, he has his injury concerns and his questions of his speed. But the Green Bay Packers need corner, and he's one of the best players on the board still available, and he fits their need perfectly. So it kind of matches up very well. The Minnesota Vikings, they need help secondary. I think Nick Emmanwori is going to be the first safety taken off the board. He had probably the best combine in NFL history, and he has that size to be able to play in there. He's more of a box safety type guy that could also cover, and he's going to be able to play that role. And once Harrison Smith ends up retiring, probably in a year, Nick Emmanwori would fit in straight into that Harrison Smith role right away as soon as he ends up hanging up the boots and ends up retiring. The Houston Texans, they go offensive line here after they ended up letting go of Laremy Tunsil and Kenyon Green. They definitely do need to help out CJ Stroud. He ended up being sacked a ton in the playoffs, and they go with Josh Simmons. This is a guy with a lot of high upside. If he never got hurt, he could have been the offensive tackle number 1 in this class, but he's coming off that knee injury, and he was out for pretty much the entire offseason and or pretty much the entire season, and he only played in 6 games. And I can see the upside to be able to help out C.J. Stroud and be able to anchor down that left tackle spot. The cornerback position, I think there's going to be several cornerbacks taken in this class in the first round. It's been reported a lot that NFL teams are very high on several of these corners, And I'm not the biggest fan of Maxwell Harrison, but I think this is a spot where he could go to the Rams. They need secondary help, they need cornerback help. And he's someone, his tackling's a little bit of a question mark, but he has tremendous speed and crazy speed that can make up for his coverage ability where he gets burnt sometimes. But there are still a lot of question marks around him, but he showed off his speed at the combine. He was probably one of the fastest people there. And showing that off to teams are going to make them fall in love with him. I think that's what happens with the Rams here. And the Baltimore Ravens, I think with Malachi Stark still on the board, safety is just not valued, so he's going to fall down a little bit. And I think he's going to be the second safety pick behind Nick Emmanwori, and the Ravens are going to pair him up with Kyle Hamilton and create one of the best secondaries in football. The Detroit Lions, they still need guard. They ended up losing Kevin Zeitler. They could end up going edge here when Donovan Ezoroku, but I'm going to end up having them taking a tackle slash guard and go with Donovan Jackson. Somebody could step in there and start at the guard spot. Donovan Jackson, someone he played guard. Once Josh Simmons ended up getting hurt and being out for the rest of the year, he slid out the tackle and played very well at tackle, just as well as Josh Simmons. But I think he's going to play guard in the NFL. And the Lions value that, and he could be able to slide in there and be able to take over that Kevin Zeitler role for the Detroit Lions. The Washington Commanders had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL last year, and they're going to look to upgrade that. They ended up having to lose Jonathan Allen, so they could go with Derek Harmon from Oregon. But this is a guy, Donovan Ezoroku from Boston College, is a guy that has the ability and the frame to have the potential to be an all-time great at the edge rushing position, and he has the production. So I think he's definitely going to be a first-round pick, and he fits in very well here with the Commanders in that Dan Quinn style defense. So I think that he's really going to value his production and his potential both and take him here. The Buffalo Bills, I think that they want to go corner and secondary, but most of those guys have been taken at this point. And looking at this, another high upside guy at the edge position, Mykel Williams, who's kind of fallen down the board in this class a little bit. He was a guy that could potentially be seen as a top 10 pick. He could go a little bit earlier, but here in Buffalo, they need to be. They actually got ran on quite a bit by the Kansas City Chiefs. They also need to upgrade their corners, so that's really going to be their focus is their defense at the edge position and at the cornerback position. And looking at value here, a lot of the corners have been taken. So Mykel Williams is a guy with a high upside. Kind of reminds me of Trayvon Walker that can be developed into being one of the better edge defenders, kind of similar to Trayvon Walker has. But it's going to take him probably a couple of years to be able to do that. The Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best left tackles is still on the board here in this class. Josh Connerly is who they're going to take. They had to get rid of Joe Thuney, who actually usually plays guard, but he actually played left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs last year, and they ended up having to let him go. And I think that they're going to look to upgrade either guard or tackle, and Josh Connerly is being seen as someone that could potentially play both of those positions for them. The Philadelphia Eagles, this is a guy that has fallen down the board because of character concerns, but he has all the ability in the world to be a great edge player in this class. And Tennessee's James Pierce, 2 years ago, he was seen as a guy that was going to be the number one pick overall. He had like 14-ish sacks in his sophomore season, but this past year, his junior season, he didn't do all that, and he kind of fell off a little bit, and he has those character concerns, so that kind of causes him to fall to number 32 here. So this is my mock draft about 1 week away. Please let me know anything you agree or disagree with in the comments here. Here's a little bit of a recap from it, from all the picks. Please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you've seen, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Moran. Need a triple double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drop the ball. Now I never fumble. I'm the MVP. Now I feel like Russell. Feel like John Moran. Need a triple double. Told him check the stats.